Greetings everyone, welcome to another one of our free Friday community classes here on the YouTubes. I post these classes pretty much every single Friday, so make sure to subscribe. You'll get a little ding every time a class goes up. You won't miss anything. This week I want to talk to you, share with you a bit about one of my Yule traditions, one of my traditions over the winter solstice. I have a few. This one has been relatively new in my practice, maybe 4 or 5 years only. And it's one that I have found to be incredibly valuable in not only marking the season and attuning to the realities of the season, but also to opening the ways to get realization and download and aha. And that's really important in my work because I am very Gnostic in my practice. I rely a lot on being taught directly from the allied spirits that I work with. So all of that is great when it happens. Now, this particular practice is a little more somber, a little more contemplative and introspective, but I think those things are important, right? It's important for us to look inward and to take stock and take inventory and kind of see how we're sitting with things. The more we know ourselves, the more we can heal and find our power and all of that. So that's very important to me. Not always comfortable, but I think incredibly important. So winter solstice, of course, the longest night of the year, the shortest day of the year. Here where I am, the winter, the coldness, the darkness kind of lingers on, sometimes until May, it feels like, right? So it can be hard to see or sense that the world is shifting, that the tides are changing, but they are. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. Now, in the compass that I work, in the wheel that I work, the winter solstice is not a halfway point. For a lot of people, this is halfway through the dark half of the year, and I respect those perspectives. For me, that's not what nature shows me. That's not how the agricultural cycle looks to me, so that's not how I do it. February 1, the 1st of February to me is the halfway point of the dark half of the year, meaning that May Day or Beltane is the true first day of summer, the true first day of the bright half of the year. And in my agricultural plant-based practices and in my cultic practices, that makes sense. So if you don't hear me speaking about winter solstice that way, that's why, right? But certainly if you see it that way, I feel like you could work with this or get creative with it and have it fit in seamlessly to what you do. So let's get into it. This particular practice for me is an acknowledgement of the reality of death. And we think about death more around the harvest seasons, right? When we're cutting back our plants and harvesting, and then we're seeing the trees let go of their leaves, and we're seeing our favorite plant allies die back, whether their life cycle is ended because they're annuals or they're retreating down into the soil to rest because they're perennials. That feels more death energy to me, and it's very visceral, right? You can see it, you can smell it, it's like all around us, and that's great. But for me, the winter solstice is when the silence of death, the stillness, and sometimes the fear really starts to arise, right? We're spending more time inside. It's the darkest part of the year. Things can get a little gloomy, things can get a little heavy. For some people, the holidays are super intense. And so when this particular practice came up for me, I was grateful. It's like, oh, something to do to kind of wrap up this harvest motif, this harvest energy, and like finish it, put a period on it so we can move on with the rest of the year. I was finding that after the harvest season, it lingered, the energy lingered. It felt like I didn't complete my ritual cycle the way that I would like to. So here is this very, very simple thing. So I'm going to show you a couple of photos while I talk, but essentially I work a 3-day ritual. It can be as brief as 3 minutes a day or longer if you want. And it starts the day before the winter solstice, includes the day of the winter solstice, and then finishes up the day after the winter solstice. So we're starting the ritual the day before and ending the day after. In other words, the ritual is carrying us through the threshold of the winter solstice. And I think that's very powerful and very beautiful. And I do this very simply at my main working altar with 3 candles. Here's an opportunity for me too to talk to you a little bit about colors in my particular practice, more specifically my cultic practice and less my herbal practice, but I think some folks maybe will find this interesting. So day 1, the day before winter solstice, I kindle a red candle, red symbolizing blood, right? The human, the animal, and I contemplate life and death and letting go, and I think about the people that maybe I've lost over the past year and how that grieving has gone for me and what the experience has been like, and I think about other things that have gone on are about loss and death, things that I've intentionally given death to in my life, old patterns and beliefs, and things that have happened on a global scale too. And as that candle burns, again, this is a very contemplative practice for me. It's very inward. Sometimes I'm speaking out loud or petitioning my allies, but I really try to get into myself and see how I feel, what comes up for me. So night 1 is blood. It's the reality of death. Night 2 is black, symbolizing darkness, but also mystery, the things unknown. The fact that no matter how much I sit and think about, contemplate about, read about death and what happens after it, we don't get to know until we are initiated into that process ourselves, which we all will be, right? So black for me is a reckoning. It's a looking out into the black void, into the unknown, down into the dark soil, and just acknowledging and embracing the fact that I can never know everything, right? And for me, as somebody who's very academically minded, and I spend a lot of time thinking, right, a lot, these moments are really powerful for me to kind of get out of my head and just feel the unknown and embrace it, right, and remember the magic of it. And so that's really what that's about. And I call this practice the night of nights, right? It's the darkest of the dark. And so I allow myself to go into, whatever spaces I go, so that I can really explore what I'm feeling and what's going on in there. Again, it's a heavier practice. And then the 3rd night with the green candle, green symbolizing life, nature, fertility, fecundity, things rising up out of the darkness, plants breaking through the cold soil in the spring, nutrients and medicine, catching the sun, doing the alchemy of photosynthesis. So then I get to contemplate on everything the red candle symbolizes, the mysterious gate of the black candle, and then everything the green candle symbolizes. I get to move through that in a very intentional, very ritualized way. 3 minutes each night, cool. Longer, great. You do what works for you. You go where you want to go. You could certainly bring in divinations or readings from sacred texts or other things that make sense for you, but for me to have something ritual to hold on to as I move through that kind of tight space, that kind of precipice space, has been really helpful for me these past few years. So red, the black, the green, the human, the mystery, the plant, the blood, the unknown, the chlorophyll. These are 3 colors that I work with pretty exclusively in my practice. You will see them reflected a lot in what I do, because they are the 3 that make sense to me. I also do work with gold and silver a lot as solar and lunar colors and the way that those influence plants and our humans' psyches as well. So I just wanted to share a wee bit, one little bit of my practice. And my hope is that as we continue pacing the wheel and we get a little bit closer to February 1, I'll share a little bit about that process of venturing outside in early February and toasting the trees, wassailing the trees and warming the soil, asking the plants to come back, waking them up gently from their slumber, which is a really beautiful practice as well. If there's anything, especially plant focused, that you do around the winter solstice, I would love to hear about it. Use the comments below, share your experiences. And with that, I will send you out into the unknown with blessings of peace and plenty. I'll see you next time.